ICAO's carbon offsetting and reduction scheme, and why DGCA wants carrier to check carbon emission from January 1st. So before we start, we first need to know what is ICAO. So ICAO is International Civil Aviation Organization, which is a specialized United Nations body, and its headquarters is in Quebec, Canada. And what is the work of ICAO? ICAO actually adopts standards and recommended practices concerning air navigation, its infrastructure, flight inspection, prevention of unlawful interference, and facilitation of border crossing procedures for international civil aviation. Since obviously the name suggests that it is an international civil aviation organization, so it only looks after the or it only sets standards and procedures for international borders, not for domestic one. So ICAO defines the protocols even for air accident investigation, followed by Transport Safety Authority in countries signatory to the Chicago Convention. So all those countries who are signatory to Chicago Convention, they will follow the protocol set by ICAO for air accident investigation. ICAO is distinct from other international air transport organization like IATA. So the important thing to note here is, firstly, that ICAO is a United Nations body, while IATA is just a trade association body. Second, we need to also understand that only those countries who are signatories to Chicago Convention will follow the protocol set by the ICAO for air accident investigation. So all these points comes in handy while answering any MCQs. So here is a picture that on the right side, industries are emitting carbon dioxide or other greenhouse gases, while here on the left side, these trees will absorb these harmful greenhouse gases. So now let's understand what is the meaning of carbon offset. So carbon offset is a reduction in emission of carbon dioxide or other greenhouse gases made in order to compensate for or to offset an emission made elsewhere. Suppose, and like in this picture itself, that these industries are emitting carbon dioxide in huge amount. So this amount that is emitted by these industries can be offset when these trees can absorb all these emitted carbon dioxide. So now the hazard that was earlier caused due to the amount of carbon dioxide emitted by these industries will be offset or reduced, because the number of trees that are planted will definitely absorb all those carbon dioxide in the air. So carbon offsets are measured in terms of carbon dioxide equivalents and may represent 6 primary categories of greenhouse gases. So one needs to learn by heart these 6 gases, because they can ask that in carbon offset which all gases are considered. So firstly is carbon dioxide itself, methane gas, nitrous oxide N2O, perfluorocarbon PFCs, HFCs and sulfur hexafluoride. So all these 6 need to be learnt by heart. And another important thing is, one carbon offset represents the reduction of 1 ton of carbon dioxide or its equivalent in other greenhouse gases. Means if a person or if an organization is buying 1 carbon offset, so it in theoretical way means that there is a reduction of 1 ton of carbon dioxide or other greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. So offsets are typically achieved through financial support of projects. Obviously, when a person or an organization is buying carbon offset from a market, so that amount that is being generated or being accumulated or collected by the market is going to be funded for the projects like renewable projects or for plantation of huge amount of large number of trees. So that accumulated amount is used for reducing the emitted carbon dioxide or harmful greenhouse gases in the atmosphere by renewable projects, like solar projects and wind turbine projects. So there are a lot of projects that are going on, or in innovation also the amount is spent, and for plantation of large number of trees. Like here it is given renewable energy such as wind farms, biomass energy, or hydroelectric dams. These are just some examples. So there is an image that says that where all from a huge amount of carbon dioxide are generated, from personal vehicles to industries, from petroleum products or aircraft even. Now we come to the news that DGCA wants carriers to check carbon emission from January 1st. So DGCA, first, the full form is Directorate General of Civil Aviation. So what happened was that 2 years ago, the ICAO adopted carbon offsetting and reduction scheme for international aviation, that is CORSIA, at its General Assembly. And DGCA, after 2 years, has drafted guidelines for aeroplane operators flying on international routes. So there is a news that under this scheme, all operators engaged in international operation have to capture their fuel consumption and carbon emission data annually starting from January 1st, 2019. So from January 1st, 2019, all the aeroplane operators are going to capture their fuel consumption and carbon emission. So they are going to make database for that from the 1st January 2019, and from the beginning of 2021, the operators will have to meet offsetting requirements by purchasing and cancelling emission units. So why from January 1st, 2019 the collection of data has started? Because for the 2 years, like for 2019 and for 2020, what they are going to do is, like, all the aeroplane operators are going to make a database of how, like, from India, from Delhi to, let's say, New York City, how much amount of fuel was spent and how much amount of carbon was emitted. So they are going to make a database for that for 2019 as well as for from 19 and for 20 also, and it will go on for every year. But what they are going to do is that for 2019 and 2020, they are going to gather the data and they are going to take out some average of these data collected for 2 years, 2019 and 20. They are going to take an average for that, and by after taking the average of that, or after taking the data from these 2019 and 2020, they are going to meet the offsetting requirements, because now they are going to set some baseline, like this is the average of 2019-20 and this is now the baseline, and now carbon emission like annually should not increase by these levels. So data of 2019-20 will act as a baseline. So not only CORSIA, but some other efforts are also being taken by ICAO. So CORSIA is only a part of aviation industry's 4-pillar strategy. So other three strategies we are going to discuss, that is, first, to address the sector's impact on climate and meet the carbon targets. Others are adoption of new technology, including deployment of sustainable alternate fuels, more efficient aircraft operation and infrastructure improvement, including modernized air traffic management system. So whatever the amount they are going to generate by from carbon offsetting, obviously they are going to reduce, like after setting the baseline of how much amount of carbon is going to be emitted for per route. Now when they have the data, so after what will happen is they will for every year they will try to firstly decrease their carbon emission, and if it is not possible of for decreasing the carbon emission for a particular year, what they are going to do is they are going to buy carbon offset. When they will buy carbon offset, what will happen is that amount that will be generated will be used for these other projects, like for sustainable alternate fuels or in technology and infrastructure improvement. So this will be done. So there is some data that IATA says that global trade body of airlines, the air transport industry contributes 2% of the global carbon emissions. So out of the total carbon emission in the atmosphere, 2% is contributed by the international aviation. CORSIA is just an effort by ICAO. They want to halve the carbon emission by 2050. So important thing is that the year is 2050, not 2030. 2030 is for sustainable development goals. 2050 is for CORSIA, to halve the carbon emission by 2050 compared with 2005 levels. So whatever was the level at 2005, they want to reduce it to half by 2050. So CORSIA aims to address annual increase in carbon dioxide emission from international civil aviation. Again, a very important thing to notice that they are addressing only of international civil aviation, not domestic, above the baseline value based on the average of 2019 and 20 in order to avoid the impact of unusual fluctuation in air traffic in 2020 level. That's what I have already told you, that they are going to take some average, or they are going to make some baseline by taking an average of 2019 and 20, and they are going to set that this is the target, and annually you cannot increase your carbon emission by this much, and if you increase, then buy the carbon offset. So CORSIA will be implemented in 3 phases. First is the pilot phase from 2021 to 2023. Then the first phase will start from 2024 to 2026, and then the second phase will start from 2027 to 2035. The pilot phase and the first phase, while they are voluntary, the second phase is mandatory for all the countries including India. So in terms of the scheme design, they have divided this CORSIA into 2 parts. First is monitoring, reporting and verification, and second is offsetting. So like what I've already told you, they will set a baseline, they will and set a target that beyond this you cannot go, and for this they are going to definitely be doing monitoring. They are going to verify the data, whatever the data has been given by operators to ICAO or DGCA, they are going to verify the data. And in offsetting, if you increase by the target, then you have to buy carbon offset. So this is the base of what I am going to tell. So under monitoring, what will happen is carriers will have to record fuel usage for each international flight and calculate carbon dioxide emission for prescribed formula. After this, they will have to report the emission information to DGCA or ICAO, and they will ensure completeness and avoid miss any statements. Under offsetting requirements, what will happen is that ICAO has said that the price of the emission units in the carbon market will be determined on the basis of availability of units and the level of offsetting requirements. So here they are talking that I have just what I have told you, that if any aeroplane operator crosses the target, they have to buy carbon offset. So what will be the price of the carbon offset will be decided by the availability of units, carbon offset units, how much they are available in the market, and second, the level of offsetting requirements, how much that is required, how much is the demand in the market for carbon offset. So like basic economic thing, demand and supply, they will decide the price of the carbon offsets. Very easy. For CORSIA, aeroplane operators is required to meet its offsetting requirements by cancelling emission units in a quantity equal to its total final offsetting requirements for a given compliance period. Let us say that for 1 year X amount of or say 100 is the unit for a particular year, that they need to contain, like this is the target, you cannot go beyond this. So if they have set a target of 100 units, so they will divide 100 into 4 parts, like 25, 25, 25 and 25, like in 4 parts every 3 months they will check that these verifying authority like DGCA and ICAO, they will check whether like you are meeting your quarterly requirements as well as your annual requirements also. It is not something like that for the first 3 months that you have exceeded your amount and you are promising that overall I'll somehow manage to be under 100, but let me just skip this quarter. So this will not be allowed. So for every quarter there will be division of the total target into particular quarters of like half yearly or quarterly, whatever will be their procedure, and they have to meet their targets even for quarterly and half yearly also. It is not something that if you skip a quarterly or half yearly thing and you say that no I am going to be covering the overall target by the end of the year. So this will not be accepted. So CORSIA eligible emission units will be determined by ICAO Council obviously, and there are some certain exceptions also that have been given, that are humanitarian, medical and firefighting things. And other than these, civil international operation undertaken by aeroplane operators are covered under, all the international civil aviation operators like are covered under ICAO under the CORSIA. So there is some other data that is that by IATA, the civil aviation as a whole emits 859 million tons of carbon dioxide, and estimates that between 2021 and 2035 aviation will have to offset 2.6 billion tons of greenhouse gases under CORSIA. So current emission is 859 million tons, like till like this day, like till 2018 they have given the data that till this day there is estimated amount of 859 million tons of carbon dioxide in the air. And what under CORSIA what they are projecting is that between 2021, since from 2021 the pilot project starts of CORSIA. So from 2021 till 2035, that is the second phase that ends in 2035. So they have a target of offsetting 2.6 billion tons of greenhouse. This is a very ambitious target to offset 2.6 billion tons of greenhouse gases. So it's not that airlines today have no control over the carbon emission units. They are very well they're doing their jobs, and there is some data here that airlines already have strong incentive to emit less. That airline reduces its fuel cost by approximately $225 for each ton of carbon dioxide. So for each ton of carbon dioxide they are charged rupees $225 for each 1 ton of carbon dioxide that is emitted. So this is what currently the steps are taken by the airline industry. So that's it. Thank you very much.